Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 489 with my dear friend, Pete Sousa. What's up, Pete?
489?
Can you believe it?
Wow.
Freaking remember sitting in my house? It was 8 years ago that I started this.
I mean, and you've been putting good out into the world, like consistently. And someone like you, it's very cool to think they can reach beyond through these mediums to help a lot of different people. It's pretty awesome.
Isn't it great? 99 countries. I've been listened to in 99 different countries. I'm like, really? And I'll call the kids sometimes and I'll be like, nobody's really listening to me. I'm like, I only had 150 downloads today. And Hadley will be like, Mom, 150 people didn't listen to me today.
No, none at all. Yeah. And it's so relative too. Like, you will get like sometimes where there's like a smidgen of people and then all of a sudden there'll be this windfall. You never know. Like you and I had said a prayer before we started this thing. I mean, that's how it works. It's on God's time and how he sees it. We just got to put it out there.
It's amazing because I want to start off with, so people who don't know Pete Sousa, I've known Pete forever and ever and ever. In fact, he went to school with my sister and brother at St. Thomas Good Counsel in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania. So I've known him forever and ever, and I love him like a brother.
You're one of my favorite people. Like I could just go like over the holidays when I would be home and you still lived in Wayne, I would go and hang out with you, your husband JF, and I could just come in there and bullshit with you for hours at a time, and your kids are coming through. You have one of those warm and fuzzy environments that it was really important to be connected to.
Well, I love you for that.
It's
So
true.
I want to tell you, it's so funny because you're not going to believe this. Somebody called me this weekend. They were at dinner in West Palm Beach, and at the table right next to them was your old, like, major boss, Michael Jordan.
Oh,
And I was like, oh my gosh. And I thought I would bring this up today because you went to high school in Wayne, in Pennsylvania, and on the main line, and then you went to the University of Richmond to play football, and you realized you had a heart murmur, so you couldn't play. You graduate, and you get a job. Oh my
yeah.
gosh. And you got a job with who?
Well, I started to work. I got a job in New York City. I started to work for this company called, first job I got was with ABC radio sales. Just like, hey, let's get a job. My dad was like, you need to get a job in college, like just do something. So I got a job at ABC radio sales. It was a disaster because I was drunk all the time or coming off drugs, alcoholic. But ultimately I ended up working in sports, and that was a conduit to working for the Charlotte Bobcats, ultimately the Hornets, when I worked for Michael Jordan. Now, it's not like, I had like a first name basis relationship with him, but I certainly was around him a good amount. And he knew me to give me the head nod that I was the tall guy that worked for him. And the cool thing about, and this was a God thing and a sobriety thing, I worked for the Hornets when I was in addiction, like hardcore. And I was in bad shape and I wasn't my best self. And I remember regretting that at the time, that I wasn't my best self. And certainly when I started to get sober, I regretted that, I squandered this opportunity. But as I learned in sobriety, like things have a way of coming back around, whether they do actually in reality or whether you wipe the slate clean and you go on living free. With this situation, it came back in reality, and I was able to work for the Hornets and Michael Jordan again and be my best self. But yeah, he was a cool dude. Like I wasn't like running the streets with him, but always real nice, positive, and like was very cool to his employees. Treated us well.
But you went from this amazing, and I will never forget the story you've told many, many, many times. I mean, I know many times when you were walking through the tunnel and all of a sudden he touches you and you were like, what?
So yeah, I was. It was like I was almost at the end of my rope, like drinking and using. Somehow I had conjured up a way to get this job working like in a small role, but working for the Hornets radio broadcasts. And you know how it goes, man. You're drinking, you're using. This is now 15 15 years ago, probably. I've been sober for about 13. And I was out with a woman the night before, drinking heavily, using drugs. And, I woke up the next morning and it was a playoff game for the Hornets. And so, and I was going to be on the air and I had like a role in the radio broadcast. And, it was like my best thinking was to wake up in the morning and to start doing cocaine. And I started to do a lot of it. And then what happens with anything? It runs out. And so now I'm at work. I don't have any drugs. I don't have any alcohol or anything to settle me down. And I'm like this broken glass. And at a at a break, I was standing by the court, and he was walking by me to go to his seat, and he just put his hand on my shoulder, just kind of like, "Hey, like, excuse me," or "What's up?" It was very friendly, but I was like, I remember being like, "Oh my god, like what?" And I remember thinking like, wow, dude, like it was a playoff game. I'd always wanted to get into broadcasting. Of course, everybody loves Michael Jordan. And here I was with this golden opportunity, and I was just flushing it right down the drain. And at that point, I knew that it had gone so far that I wasn't able, like, there was no way in addiction that I was going to reel it back in. So it was sort of like one of those things like, wow, I remember that day. I remember thinking, I just want to leave so I can go get some alcohol to settle myself down. And that's where I was, and it actually got worse. I mean, it got worse, and I remember feeling hopeless for sure.
And that hopelessness then eventually got you saying, "All right, I give up, white flag.
Yeah,
Somebody come help me.
yeah,
Michael, Kevin,
yeah.
your mom, your dad, come get me, come help me." And it took you to like working in a fast food restaurant. You went from like getting tapped on the back to, "What can I get you? Fries, double fries, Diet Coke?"
I walked into. I'm here in Texas. I went to a Jersey Mike's last night, and there was this poor kid who was obviously working his first shift there. And first of all, that sucks because it's like Subway. There's no, you're literally making sandwiches in front of people. They should pay them $1 million for that. It's like a spectator sport. So this poor kid is trying to do it while I'm like right in front of him, and he's not doing a great job. And the other guy's giving him instructions. I'm like, bro, we're gonna get through this together. I'm like, trust me, dude. I was like, it wasn't so long ago. I was working at KFC. If there was a long line, I would run to the bathroom. They'd be like, yo, dude, like, where are you going? And I had this fight or flight. I was in a recovery house working at a fast food place, and I didn't know how to work the register. So my coping skills were to run away. And ultimately, I learned how to work the register and sort of learned how to work life a little bit and understand that, like, you just got to go through. The only way is through, whether you're going to learn or whatever. But the running away stuff is over with.
And where do you think you got your willingness to just say, "All right, I'm willing to do whatever you tell me to do"?
I mean, literally, I had to go to the absolute bottom. It was like not like you hear stories in recovery where, well, yeah, like, and they're true stories, and these people have their own stories, but it's like, some people get off when they still have a family, when they still have a car, when they still are paying bills, like when they still have food in the refrigerator or money in their bank account. I had none of those things, and I think that I had seen how awful my life had gotten because of alcohol and drugs and my choices that I had made, right? That I knew that the only way for me to recover from that was to take suggestions from these people like you or from my brothers who were both sober, who had something attractive and they weren't drinking. Look, I know you could agree with me on this. I said this the other day to somebody. If being sober was not fun, I'd be getting drunk.
Exactly.
Fact of the matter. Like, I'll be getting drunk, but it's fun. Like, it's a great life. So you stick with it, right? And you keep doing what works. But the willingness I got was literally from the gift of desperation.
And I love that. And I think that the crazy thing is that we think it's the liquid. And I'm just going to show this bottle. It doesn't have liquor in it. Obviously, it's water and lemon.
Yeah,
And you
yeah,
have yours. Cheers. And we think that that liquid is going to make all of our life so much fun, but it wasn't.
yeah. It's a
That was
liquid.
the biggest lie.
It's the biggest lie. Alcohol and drugs was the biggest lie that I ever told myself. And I was a willing participant, but I really, truly believed that this was a reason that I was able to do certain things that I could not do without it. And it was all a lie that I allowed to drive my life into the ground.
And do you agree? Because I didn't think about this till when I got sober, but what a prison it was being an addict.
Oh,
Because your entire life, you're like, do I have enough? Is there going to be enough? Where is it? I want to get more. Like you were just mentioning. And it's like, I didn't realize it was such a prison. Like, I thought, oh, I have so many choices. I had no choices.
yeah, the moment I and I think about this too. I look back on my life now, um, being sober for a little bit and have a pretty clear perspective. Like the moment I started to drink and it started to work, like around like 14, and this is true. It was my motivation for just about every. I didn't realize it, but every move I made was towards the next drink. Because in high school, like, when I started drinking, it's not like you're getting wasted every night, but then you're part of that. And it's not a big percentage, whether it was okay, you look around, they were your friends. The overwhelming popularity was not screwed up like I was. Like,
Right.
on Tuesday, it was like, let's game plan how we can get drunk on Friday. And that was like a centerpiece. And for me, I grew up, love, and I had a very healthy relationship with sports, and that drove me, and it introduced me to a lot of awesome experiences in my life. But like right away when I started to drink, it was about alcohol and it was about women, which was really about, that was another drug. And it was really about ego too.
And do you think that when we are in it, like I remember waking up the next day feeling so much shame and so much remorse. And I felt like I had like this moral problem, right? We were both raised Catholic, and it's like we're morally like there's something wrong with us. But I don't believe today that there's anything morally wrong with us. Do you agree?
Yeah, there's no, I mean, we had an alcoholic and a drug addict. Now, this is the thing. Um, when we get sober, there are things we have to work through. Like the whole idea that like, oh, like somebody gets sober, so we just forgive them and they have this like easy path back into our lives is not true. Like when you get sober, when I got sober, there was so much stuff that I had to walk through. Um, Shame being part of it and facing people and owning my side in stuff that I didn't even think I had a side in. But those consequences don't go anywhere. Like if you lose a job or you're in trouble with the law or, you know, you break somebody's heart, not like a significant other I'm talking about, like your mom, like you have to earn your way back into their lives, and that the process of doing that is where you can eliminate that shame because you finally start to do esteemable stuff. Because, like you said, Biz, like I didn't even realize how much shame I had because the moment I started to feel those feelings, I would find a way to, get drunk again or take more drugs. Or I didn't realize how little I wanted to feel.
It's so true because it's like when you're in it, and then I remember like I patented "Sober Not Ashamed."
Oh,
That's the first thing I did because I had so much shame. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm such a bad person. Everything I did that was wrong." But then we go and we start doing this, and it doesn't get better right away. Like you went to a halfway house, and then you worked at KFC, and then you came back home.
yeah. I did, and all that stuff. It was funny too because my ego was so outsized that I don't know that like I wasn't ready to get sober. I couldn't get so I was so broken that the idea of getting sober where I lived around people that I grew up with and having so little, because at the time I was in my 30s. Like I got friends raising families, they own houses, all, they're everything's good with them. At least that's what it seemed like for me. And I don't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of, and I'm living with my like that was just something that I couldn't wrap my mind around. So going to treatment and then even going to a recovery house after that, where I was away from my home, like I believe I can't tell other people what to do, but for me, going away someplace where there were four walls and a lot of support, I didn't need to be home for a while. Like I was, it's life or death, and for me going away and learning how to live sober and becoming on fire with this program from doing the work, then I came back home like a ball of fire. By the time I moved back home to Philadelphia and kind of continued on with sobriety and career and personal, I was probably a year and a half sober. And at that point, I didn't give a shit. I was so enthusiastic about sobriety. And really, I was looking back now and talking to people, I was put in positions where I was able to help other people who were going through addiction without even knowing that I was, because I was sober and had this thing about me that we get, right, when we're in the middle of the boat, that was attractive to people. And so, like, just by being sober, I was able to help people.
Oh my gosh, you helped me so many times, you know? And I mean, it was amazing. We would sit in my front red room of my house and we would talk about, we've got to start a meeting. We help me start this
Yes,
meeting. And we started this meeting, Morning Hope, and it's still going around on today.
it's
And
on
neither of us really
weekends.
go.
It's on weekends. And somebody told me there's like that 7 o'clock meeting. It's called the 707 at um I guess it's at St. Thomas Church, right? By where the Acme used to be the
Yeah.
scene now. Like that meeting can be a mob scene, and sometimes like it's like, all right, it's more of a social event. It can be. But like somebody told me, yeah, that they went to Morning Hope on a Saturday. I was like, you mean that meeting's an option? They were like, yeah. I was like, that's where I want to go, where there's like 12 people and we're talking AA rather than I don't feel like going to a huge group.
Oh my gosh, we would sit there on the couches and just hang out in this really comfy church basement.
It was great. And as recently as, I guess, 4 years ago or 5 years ago when I was home, I was going to that meeting.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. It's like just two people that come together and we're like, let's have an idea. You were like, yeah, let's do it. And you helped me get the energy to do it.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so you started over. And then, so you're at home and you're working and you're like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And you get offered this job in Waco, Texas.
Well, you hold on now.
Oh, I forgot. I forgot when you went to Louisiana. Oh, wait a minute. I
Yes,
got to go
you
back to
skipped the part.
Louisiana.
So I had gotten my like bearings again, and had gotten some opportunities to get into broadcasting, and that was going really well, like sports broadcasting. But it was all like part time stuff, and really financially, I wasn't solvent. So I was given an opportunity to work in TV news, and I had the bright idea, like, well, I guess I'll do that. I liked morning news. And so I moved to Monroe, Louisiana. And that really is the program, right? Like I now looking back, I'm like, holy shit, like what was I thinking? But like you're just driven by this thing greater than you. And it's not like I went to Northeast Louisiana and stopped going to meetings no, like that's the only way I could get through that situation there, because people in Louisiana were awesome and they accepted me, but I was terrible at my job. I'm dyslexic. I can't really read. I'm I'm learning how to read on a teleprompter in front of all these people on live TV. And you go to the Chick-fil-A. Nowadays I'm lucky, like where if I go somewhere and people know me from the work I've done here in Texas and local TV or sports broadcasting across the country, like they'll come up and say, "Hey, like nice to see you. I've seen you on ESPN or I've seen you on the local news. Like, great job." Back then, it was like people would notice me, but they wouldn't say anything. They'd be like, "Oh my god," they're like, "Oh my god, that's the guy on the news that is so bad," and you know it. So luckily, at the time, my boss stuck with me, and it was the same thing as a KFC. I believed in myself. It's probably not as bad as I'm describing, but it sure felt that way. And I just kind of learned how to do it and got through the hardship. And then I got a job in Waco, which was like a step up. And then I'm in Waco and I'm working here. And I kind of really had the broadcasting thing down a little bit. Go ahead.
I got to do a timeout. We got to tell you, but what time of day were
Oh,
you on in Louisiana and then Texas? Okay,
three.
let's talk
So,
about
yeah,
that.
you're waking up at 3 in the morning to be on the air at 4:30, 5 o'clock. So again, initially I kind of was like, wow, this is great. I did have that like on fire gratitude, like, and then I was like, man, this is pretty early. So, but the better I got at broadcasting, 7 years on the air every day for a couple hours a day, uh, I got opportunities to work back in sports and call games, which I had always been good at. Even when I was a kid, I would sit in front of the television screen. I would call games out loud, and I always had the gift of gab. When I was at Richmond, and I couldn't play football there, I called the basketball games, and but there's also broadcasting's an art. Like you have to get on the air and off the air, and you have to be able to present the beginning of the game. And I wasn't able to do that at a big stage when I'd first gotten sober. I didn't know how to broadcast. Well, I learned. And when opportunities were presented to me, when I was in Waco after being on the air for 7, 8 years, 9 years, I was like, boom. Like it was a very successful operation, and it was an opportunity I was able to take advantage of. So, but it all started with these these opportunities that I never foresaw coming, and that I certainly at the moment was like, wow, this is kind of weird. But you go with it. You literally, you go with it. You go where your recovery takes you.
Well, it's so interesting because two things I thought about and I wrote them down. One is saying yes. You
Oh,
always say yes. You never say no. You say yes. So you said yes to going home, and yes to going to treatment, and yes, I will go live in a halfway house, and yes, I'll work at KFC, and yes, I'll move to Monroe, Louisiana, and do a morning show at 3 o'clock in the morning, as uncomfortable as it was, and how you couldn't read, and all these things. And then you said, yes, I'll go to Waco, Texas, that again, nobody had really heard of except for that crazy thing that happened with David, what's his name?
Waco's the best, Biz. Come on, take it.
I'm dying to go to Waco. I love that the Magnolia group, but you always said yes. And you mentioned something that made me think of a pink cloud, because
Yeah.
somebody just actually mentioned to me, a friend said, I was on this pink cloud and now I feel like it's waning. Well, I don't have a pink cloud anymore. And I think it does wane at times, don't you think?
Okay, Biz. I remember being in a meeting with you, the Tuesday night meeting in St. Mary's, and you would, go off on one of your rants. And I remember you said something, and it really connected with me. You were in front of me in the room. I can remember your back as you're talking, but you're like, whoever said like life was supposed to be easy? It's not easy. Like that's total bullshit. Like your life at times is going to be hard. And I had a sponsor in Hoboken, New Jersey, who I would call him and bitch a little bit, and he'd be like, "Sounds like it's your turn." And truly, if you can learn if you can remember that and understand, like sometimes stuff just really sucks, and it can be for a long period of time. Um, but if you stick with it and you stay in the middle, and keep your support system around you and do what you need to do to stay sober and keep that recovery going, like, you learn how to get through. But it's like, yeah, shit gets real hard, and
But you keep going.
you keep going. I mean, and your point to saying yes, and it's good to hear that, because a lot of times I do, like I'll say yes to commitments, and look, it's almost like the 12 steps in AA. Like, you know, you became willing to do something, right? Like, I don't want to fucking do it right now, but sure, you need me to do that in a week? Like, yeah, no problem. I became willing, and then in a week, I'm like, fuck, I said I would do that, so I actually have to go do it. But by saying yes to that stuff, it puts me in a position to succeed and become better. I don't want to do truly. I if it were up to me, and like the way that I like to think, like I would just stay inside and watch Netflix all day and eat food and hang and just not deal. But like those are where I get the rewards from dealing. That's when I feel that like excitement and that fulfillment that gives me what alcohol and drugs used to.
Oh, I totally agree. But I do, and I also agree with that saying yes. And you're like, how do I get out of this? Beep, beep, beep. I just want to reverse so fast.
Totally, yeah, that's a problem. I heard somebody say that's a problem for future Pete, and then all of a sudden, like it's time for future Pete to put on his cape and do that shit because we're present day. Yeah, it happens.
And it's funny, I want what you brought up, and I want to get a little spiritual now. When you brought up like things happening and you saying yes, and you didn't really make these things happen. And I think his name's Peter Flaherty, the Irish guy who announces for NBC for golf. Do you know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about?
No, David Faraday.
David Faraday. JF always tells me it's David. It's David. Well, we went even saw him in New Jersey at
Oh,
one day.
really?
It's like let's go. Yeah, he's like let's go hear him, and he talked
David
about
Faraday.
David Faraday, the
Yeah.
Irish guy on NBC who does all of the golf. And he talks about how he was drunk sitting at a bar. And I think his wife had just divorced him. And somebody sat down and said, "Now, wait, you play golf?" And he's like, "Yes, I do. I do play golf." I can't even do the right accent.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yes, I do." And they said, "Do you want to come and help announce and do golf tournaments?" And he was like, "Okay, sure. Yes." And that was a God thing. Like that was not like you did not go out and say, "All right, this is how my life is going to
No,
be."
no, we have ideas though. Like,
We do.
and you take care of what you can take care of, and you leave the rest up to God and the universe. And look, whether you want to acknowledge that at the time, that's what's going to happen. So
Right.
you might as well get over it and realize that there's only so much you're in control of. Control that, and the rest is going to happen the way it's supposed to. Uh, and that's not my opinion. That's what's happened to me since I got sober. And it's not all like unicorns and rainbows. Some stuff really blows. But I mean, that's again like what goes back to your point. Like life is not easy. Like I'll tell you, if life, it goes back to the Bear Bryant quote, the guy who was the legendary coach of Alabama. Like, like anything that's easy really isn't worth a damn. Like, and that's pretty true. Like, my brain wants me to take shortcuts, but I don't feel any kind of way about that. But if I
No.
do something hard and I finish and I enjoy it along the way and I don't attach myself to the end result, like I feel very good about that when it's over.
Isn't it the best?
It
Like,
is.
there's so many tools in the big book and in the 12 steps. I mean, I remember when I first got sober, I was like, everybody needs to get sober and do the 12 steps because it's like the most magical thing in the whole world.
You're
And
banging
it is
big books on people's heads, right? Yeah,
right?
same
But
as
you
me.
first walk into at least I walked into those rooms going, "Oh my God." It was like the heaviest door in the entire world, like the gym. I don't go to the gym. We all know that Bizzy doesn't go to the gym. But it was like that first day I went to that St. Mary's meeting and I had to open the door on a Tuesday night and go, "Hi, I'm Elizabeth. I'm an alcoholic." And I thought that was going to be the scariest thing in the entire world, but it opened up everything.
Yes. Yeah, and it's freeing. And you and I and other people out there, I think it's cool that we have these shows that we do so we can get sobriety out in front of people, because some people don't even make it to those meetings, right? Some people die before they even get there. And it's because of that fear and whatever stigma they want to attach to it that they don't even get through the door. Like, think about how lucky we were to get the door. People don't make it there. And so like that's why it's funny when you go to a meeting and regardless of how anybody's feeling going in there or while they're there, like you can let go of that. Like some of the most powerful stuff I've ever been told is you never have to feel the way you feel right now again. And it turned out to be true.
Oh my gosh, so true. And when you walk into a meeting going, "Oh my gosh, I'm so scared that I'm going in here and I might see somebody I know."
Yeah, who
And
cares?
you're like, "Well, wait a minute. That person walked in here too
Yeah.
thinking that when they came in." Like everybody has that feeling when they walk into their first meeting. Like nobody gets this like amazing feeling going, "Yay, I finally arrived."
Nobody rolls in there on a winning streak.
No.
Jelly Roll talking about Jelly Roll has a song that somebody Murph, my man, sent me this,
Yeah.
and it talks about one of the lyrics is like somebody said to Jelly Roll at his first meeting or whatever, like nobody comes in here on a winning streak, like, and you that's your ego too. That your ego will kill you. Like, I don't want people to think of me some kind of way because I'm going to go to a meeting. I remember when I first got sober, I left a message on my voicemail that said I was out of the country on assignment for work. Everybody knew I didn't have a job. Like, anybody that knew me a little bit was like not worried about me working. They were worried about me staying alive. So I mean, that's complete bullshit. But I think those lies will, they keep a lot of people drunk and keep a lot of people in pain.
Oh my gosh, so many. And it's so funny because you brought up your podcast.
Yeah.
And Pete started a podcast after I did. And I remember somebody saying to me, "Oh my God, are you so mad he's doing this? Are you so mad?" And I was like, no, I'm kind of flattered in some ways because I mean, I remember when I was becoming a recovery coach, like, I'm
Yeah.
thinking I'm going to become a recovery coach too.
Yes.
And it's just, and it's so amazing to see you where you are today. And like, cause I remember us just like hanging out on the couch going, all right, that was a long time ago.
It was.
And so many things have transpired
No,
since
but
then.
people like you doing your show, right? And it's like, and it really is like, there's so many logistical things that can keep people from doing that, right? From breaking through like you did. And so for someone like me, it's the same thing as watching someone get sober. Seeing you break through and go through all the bullshit, all of a sudden that becomes doable, right? And then now we're both out there carrying the message. But it took people like you to start to, because if you think about it, I mean, even so, you started yours 8 years ago, right? So I started mine 4 years ago. So I know from my own experience, 4 years ago, there weren't as many like podcasts about sobriety. Now I feel like they're everywhere. Now, to what you just said, bring it on. Like the more good that can be out in the universe like that, and the more that kind of message can be shared, it's awesome. But it continues to pick up and pick up. And it's one of those things where I look at it and I'm like, wow, that's kind of amazing. You know?
Oh my gosh.
Do you get frustrated sometimes as somebody? Let's go a little inside the podcast stuff. Sometimes I feel like there's like a rotating like guest thing. And I'm like, wait a minute,
Oh,
like
oh,
I
I say
don't know.
something now. I say something. I'm like, how many people did you send this to?
Yeah.
How many people did you say, I'm not, you can't come on my show? But you know what? I do all the time because I get to do that because it's my own
Yeah.
show and I do everything myself. I'm a one man dog and pony show. And you know what? And back to, what you just said, Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
So I started like he is, I don't even know how many years he's been around. Maybe he's 9 years. Like it's
Yeah.
literally, I'm kind of like right around him. I mean, I was sitting in my, your phone's ringing or something.
There
There
you
you
go.
go. But Joe Rogan was saying, I remember him saying, like, this is going to take off. And the more, the merrier.
Yeah.
And it's like amazing. It's amazing. But yes, back to the guest thing. I mean, there are the same people that are promoting the same book, the same spiel. They want to get as many podcasts as they want to. I do not want to be an infomercial host. I'm definitely not that. I don't make a cut if you're selling your book. Okay. So I'm not interested. If you have a compelling story and you want to get honest with me, I'm ready to hear it. But I don't want to just hear, this is my book I just wrote. Do you want to see it? Here it is. Will you buy it? I want to hear like the nitty gritty. I want to hear the real stuff, you
Yeah.
know? So I'm just, I don't want to be another number. You know me. I'm like, I've never been a sheep. Sorry. That is not busy. I am not a sheep.
No.
And I think I'm blessed that I can make, thank you, JF, that I can do whatever I want to do and it's okay. We got to give the
I
man
mean,
credit.
and I think that like you have empowered yourself like with the ability to do that. Like, and it doesn't happen overnight. Like you slowly trudge that walk, you know?
I really do. I mean, so many times I've wanted to give up. I've been like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not doing this anymore. Look at my numbers. Pete has way better numbers than I do. He's a guy. He's a sportscaster. I'm like, it's whatever. I'm just gonna. It doesn't matter. I mean, the whole reason I even started doing this, as you know, was to help the other alcoholic that's out there suffering and just let people know
Well,
that
and
they're
also
not
it's the
alone.
exercise too. Like you're talking to someone about sobriety. You're really helping
Yeah.
yourself too. Like I really am helping myself. Like on days when I don't want to do it, I do it. And it's just like if you have someone that you're working with, like a sponsor or sponsee, like when you meet with them, it's like, oh, okay, this is great.
It's amazing. It's like that's when you hear the magic when you have two alcoholics together. I mean, people will say to me they like to still go to Zoom meetings. I haven't been to a Zoom meeting in I don't even know how long. I go in person because there's this magic, which
Yes.
I'm talking about.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And you try to feel it through Zoom, and I get it. Like if you got sober on Zoom, you don't know what the difference is. So it's like
Yeah.
cool. You keep doing that. That's how you got sober. I totally appreciate it, and I understand if you live somewhere in the middle of nowhere where you can't get to a meeting. But where I live in South Florida, there's like a meeting every minute, like anytime I want to, revolving.
Yeah.
getting out there and getting in those rooms and hearing, like remembering what it was like
Oh,
when we were just
100%.
talking about that, because I have a born forgetter.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think that you're exactly right. Getting into the rooms, there's magic. I still will get onto Zoom meetings, right? But I got to make sure, and this is truly, I've learned this. Like, I need the in person. I just do. When I'm driving from Waco to Dallas to see my girlfriend, and I have to catch a flight the next morning because I have a game, and there's a meeting that I can get on a Zoom meeting, like, of course, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing in the world. I'm in my car and I'm getting a meeting at the same time. However, if that's all my recovery is. Like for me, that's just not quite what I need to get invigorated, right? What I need to carry the message. It is certainly, like you said, there's something to it. But yeah, I like to get out there and I like the contact.
It's like this God thing that happens in the rooms. I'm going to go to something and I just want to ask you this.
Yeah.
Has your relationship changed with God since Kevin, your brother, passed away and your dad passed away?
Oh gosh, that's such a good question, Biz. Well, first of all, here in my studio, I got a picture of my brother right behind me.
Ah.
Surfer, therapist, just kind of like a
With
guy.
the rainbow, look at the rainbow. Like,
I
is
know
that so
that's,
magical?
and that was a picture taken long before he passed away. Um, but I think I've had a stronger faith because I talked to my brother and my dad, and talking to them is kind of like talking to God. And because there's a belief that I truly do feel them, and they are still with me. Like there's no doubt about that, because they've helped me. Because the power is greater than me, and when I tap into those two, I am, before I call a game, if I'm getting super nervous, I'll literally just think of my brother being like, "You're a fucking idiot," and I'll laugh. I will. And that is not of me. And there's something about that is so special and never leaves. So it's only strengthened my relationship with God. And it's not like some situation where I'm like, oh, like I can't get to heaven to see them there. They're with me now. And it's not, I think I worry about people that are constantly like, oh, like I give my girlfriend a hard time about this. She's like, "Oh, I can't wait to go on vacation." I'm like, "Well, this is a vacation." And maybe then she's like, "Hey, asshole, I got the two kids. I'm running around." So I try to bite my tongue, um, because I know who the boss is over there, and with her and I. But I do sometimes want to make sure that I'm not like, oh, like the destination, whether it be heaven or a vacation or when I get this job or, finally when I get off work today, it's like, what's going on right now? This is all I have. Like I got to find a way to be present and to appreciate it right now. And so I can bring my brother and my dad along me during that walk, like ultimately if I were running into them somewhere else in another universe, that's great. But right now, like I have to have them with me now. I can't wait, and just like I can't wait on the peace of mind or fulfillment.
It's so true. It is
Yeah,
so true.
it
It
is.
is. And it's like being raised Catholic, as hard as it was, and we were made to go to church every Sunday, and you went to church during the week at school. I mean,
And it's great. Like, look, like I think like there was something to be said for, and this is just the way it worked out. There was no blueprint by anybody, but the fact that I had gone to church, I didn't have like this major like war with religion. I had a pretty good experience. Everybody I bumped into in church was cool to me. Like, you know, there was some stuff I got in trouble for by nuns and brothers and priests at grade school or high school, but I asked for every last morsel of it. Like I was the hellraiser. So, and I never ran into much trouble as far as like from a moral thing or like I never was at odds with God, and I think that is one thing with sobriety that like it's like you got to get off the debate squad. Like it's over. You know what I mean? Like the war is over. Wave the white flag. It's done. Like find a higher power and save your life. Like stop, like people that talk to me about God and all that stuff, and that's why they can't get sober, like they're moving closer to death. And it's not like a Catholic God. It's not like this religious God. It's just you're not it, dude. And if that's where you need to start, that's where you start. And before you know it, then you have a relationship like you and I are talking about now, which is like so strong, you know?
It's so beautiful. It is so beautiful. Thank you to Terry to
Yeah, my
take
mom.
make
Yeah.
your mom, Terry Sousa, for having you go to church. I mean, thank you.
Yeah.
And I think that when, like for me at least, when I came in and you saw step two, and it's like came to believe in a power greater than yourself, and I'm like, what do you mean? I already have power greater than me. I already got that one check. Of
Yeah.
course, but that
No,
is
you
so much.
yeah. You have no idea. There's so much. And that's the thing too about my journey and your journey. You've been at this for a while. What are you, 16 years?
18.
18 years. So 18 years, like, and there's still so much more out there for you. You uncover more. You told me before this started that you love JF, your husband, more than you did when you first married him. Like, that is finding, like tapping into what's real and what's left in the relationship and what's left in your life. Like there's really always more. There's always more work to do. I don't like to think of it as like some exhausting process, like today I'm not good enough, but there's it's kind of exciting to think like there's more to discover. There's deeper bonds to establish with people. It's kind of a cool deal.
It's so amazing. It's so amazing. And
But
I
none of that's
definitely
there if I don't stay sober and I don't work a program. Like, I'm sitting here talking like I'm part of the mental board of health. Like, don't get it twisted. Like I'll lose my shit tonight, and I'm trying to think. I almost lost it earlier today. Like, it's about staying in the middle, but understanding like, hey, if you make a mistake or you act out, as long as like, you don't get drunk, you don't do anything like egregious, like you got to give yourself a break, you know.
totally. But I think that those are the tools you're talking about.
Hmm.
Because I think there's this toolbox you learn when you're getting, at least for me, it was a toolbox. Like, what do I need to do? Like in the morning, I have to pray before I get out of bed, or I'm just like, forget it. I'm going to be
Yeah.
done. I'm like, what is wrong with me today? Oh, I forgot to do that thing, right? It's like,
Yes, totally.
and being able to make an amends right away, a 10 step, like being able to look at somebody and go, you know what, dude, I'm sorry. I'm sure you do that with your girlfriend all the time.
Oh, I do it with her in the moment. And she's shocked. Sometimes it takes me a minute to get around to it, but I'm usually pretty good. And I think that for the average person, it's surprising to them to have somebody own their shit right away. But for me, it's kind of second nature, and it's about accountability. I mean, I was talking to another alcoholic last night who was going through a fourth and fifth step, and I was just sharing with them like how I went through it and what experience I had. And one of the main things that I really developed going through that process was accountability. Like I had all this stuff that I resented people for. I had all these things that it made me feel. And then I had a part in it, which I discovered. I did not know that. And I've always been, and I know you're like this too. And maybe it's how we were raised, but I always had this kind of this inside me, like, quit your bitching, dude. Like, I can't. If there's something that drives me crazy, it's like it's just a complaint. It doesn't do anything for me. Like that does nothing for your circumstances now. Like the only thing, and that's what's beautiful about sobriety, is like action. Like, and trust me, I bitch, I complain, just like the rest of them. But when I hear it coming out of my mouth, or I even hear it percolating in my brain, right in my mind, I'm like, dude, that lose that. Like you've got to take action and you've got to be positive because the only thing I have control over, one of the only things, is my attitude and enthusiasm for life. You
In
know?
your mouth.
Yeah. In your mouth, exactly. Yeah. But I mean, truly, like I I certainly complain. I was complaining today, but I don't complain that much, and I understand that I'm in the bonus round of life, and I shouldn't be complaining about anything.
No, and I want to, it was so funny because when you brought up the four step, I was just about to ask you because I hear so many people that are like, I can't do a four step. I went out on my four step and I'm like, that's your own story. Why don't
Yeah.
we embrace our own story? And we can embrace the shame. It's kind of funny because I listen to the Halo app all the time. You know that Halo
Yeah,
app?
I've heard of it.
I
Yeah.
I
People
love
rave
it.
about it. Yeah.
I love it. I listen to it every morning. I can't get out of bed without it. And they were saying one day,
You and
like
Marky
shame,
Mark.
me and Marky Mark. And but they brought up shame and how God already forgave us for shame.
Yeah.
Like all that's our
Do you
humanness.
know Dave C? So Dave C, he's a guy. He talks like this. He goes out towards like Ludwig's. That's where he goes to meetings, and he says to me, Biz. He goes, my sponsor told me once upon a time. He said, Dave, come down off that cross. There's already somebody up there. And like when he said that, it was like boom. Like seriously, what are you doing here? Like
Yeah,
lose the shame. Forget about it. It's already taken care of. You know.
exactly. Right. And it's like own your story. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. Right.
Yeah. Well, it's very freeing too.
Oh,
Uh,
it's so freeing. It is like dropping
yeah,
backpack of bricks that you're carrying on your back and going,
and people
hallelujah.
can get behind you. This is a reach, but I'll give you a quick sports analogy that I came upon this week doing my show here. Is like, you think about the quarterback position, and it's probably the most important position in football. But like right now, the Cleveland Browns have a guy playing quarterback for them, Deshaun Watson.
Joe Burrows, he's just
Well,
so
no,
hard on
this is
the
the
eyes.
this is the
Not, oh
Cleveland,
my God, he's so adorable. I love Joe.
not the Bengals, the Browns. I'm talking
Oh,
about
the
the.
prank. See, like, I don't
All right,
even.
so hold on. So their quarterback is Deshaun Watson, and Deshaun Watson has been accused of all kinds of abhorrent legal stuff. Now it hasn't been proven, but there's a lot of smoke, right? And wouldn't it? Yeah, he has trouble leading a team because he hasn't owned his shit. Whatever it is, he's denied all of it. So let's take another look, and this is another guy who's kind of like a lightning rod. But like, remember Michael Vick with all the dog stuff? Terrible,
Yes, yeah, yeah,
abhorrent
yeah.
stuff.
Horrible,
However,
horrible.
he got with Tony Dungy. He got with other people. He owned it. He paid his debt to society. He went out on a tour talking about, I was wrong. What I did was wrong. He talked to high schools. And over time, it became appear that this guy's genuine about this. And he was able to lead a football team. And he's able now to have great success in the community and his life after football. And it's like there is a real magic to somebody who will own their stuff. And people want to be around that. People are attracted to that. But for so long, I like fought it tooth and nail. I didn't want to own my story, you know?
Oh, I think it's so important. Well, I want to ask you, I'm bringing you home with this.
Okay.
What is happening now in your life besides the Pete Sousa show? What just happened? Because you finally, and I want to, this is a big question. What courage did it take to say, I am leaving this job in Waco that I've been at for 9 years?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
knew what my paycheck looked like. I knew what I was walking into each and every day. I knew
Yeah.
who was going to be sitting next to me at the desk. I knew we were going to kind of probably talk about a little traffic, a little weather, a little politics, whatever's going on in local news.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to you right before your last day.
Yeah.
And you were like, I'm going to do it, but I'm kind of nervous.
Yeah. Yeah.
And tell us about that.
Look, God has taken me this far, right? So he's not going to drop me on my head. And I knew good and well that when I walked away from this, like there was a lot of stuff that I was having faith in. But I also knew, like, look, if it doesn't work out, like I'll be okay. And so far it's been great. I'm here with the show that I do every day, calling games for ESPN. I've actually gotten more opportunities since I've kind of turned the page, and am out there, and I got zero complaints, and I'm not waking up at 3:30 in the morning anymore. But I also know too, and I need to kind of get away from this a little bit. Like I'm not necessarily waiting for the other shoe to drop, but I do know that hardship awaits in life, right? I've just, even in sobriety, right? I've had a job. I was working in the NBA Development League, and I thought that I was on this fast track to be the next great play-by-play guy. And the team that I was working for moved. They moved to Michigan, and I was like, wow. And that kind of screwed me up. So I had to recover from that. We talked about my brother dying, my dad dying. Like this stuff happens in life, and we move through it. But uh, I'm very grateful, and I try to live in the moment because I don't know what's going to come next. Whether it's great success, great what I would consider failure or tragedy, like all I have is right now. And honestly, talking to you about that helps me because I don't normally think like that, you know?
Right. But it's but getting back to you're in the middle of the bed,
Yeah,
right?
pretty
It's
close. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You just get in the middle of the bed and
Yeah.
everything's okay.
You got to ask my girlfriend.
Okay.
Yeah, usually I
I
think
can't wait to meet your girlfriend. So wait a minute, the Pete Sousa show's on every day now.
every day on the Rogue Media Network, the Pete Sousa Show. It's a sports pop culture show. It's on at 1 p.m. Central Time, and you can get it on YouTube. You can get it in podcast form, and then the payoff with Pete, obviously the podcast on Rogue Media Network about recovery, calling games for ESPN, hosting a show for the Big 12. That if you live in Dallas or Phoenix, a Big 12 market, you can watch it there. You can get it on the Big 12 YouTube page. That's it. I'm done plugging stuff.
Oh my gosh, so wait a minute. But you do the payoff with Pete, that's once a week?
That is once a week, yeah. And
Okay.
this great conversation is probably playing on the payoff with Pete right now. People that are listening to this, so thank you for listening. Like and
Oh my gosh.
subscribe.
I love, yeah, like and subscribe to Busy Living Soba too.
Uh,
It's been I'm really excited for you and I'm so glad that you've said yes to so many things. I
yeah,
think so many exciting things are going to happen and yes, hard things happen too like you said. But we don't drink no matter what, do we? We
no,
don't
that's
use
it.
our dad dying, getting fired,
No,
having to move, having to get up in the middle of the night, having hard days, getting a flat tire, like all these
I'll
crazy
tell you
things.
something really human that happened. Just to kind of when I had a football game in Wyoming, and I went to Colorado with my girlfriend. Her daughter was looking at Colorado University, and we were out in
Older.
Colorado, a suburb, and we were at this outdoor like bar restaurant area, and it was you could pour your own beer, right? And there was something like, oh wow, I can go over there and pour that. Like it was one of those things where I was like, you have those moments where you're like, dude, never. But my brain was like, wow, you could do that. And it was one of those things like I was like, oh wow, I still got this shit. You know what I mean? And
Oh,
there is no way in hell I would allow myself to do that. Like, and you bring God in or whatever. Like, you're never so powerful. Like sometimes, like you got to call God in. Like, hey, I need a little help right here. Like that's looking like whatever for the first time in like 5 years, but it's on my mind. Um, we're never out of the woods as far as like that disease. It's still there. You know.
oh my gosh, can I tell you something similar? Well, I went to Southampton with a friend and we got to this house that we rented on Airbnb. There was a kegerator
Yeah.
in the kitchen.
Yeah, it's like it's weird, like the accessibility. Like if I can have wine or beer in my fridge, and like I guess I'm like used to that, you know what I mean? But like this whole like I'm like, what really? Like that's why I tell people too that are new in recovery, house parties are kind of dangerous. I relapsed once at a house party. I mean, I kind of knew I was going to drink. I'd stopped like doing what I needed to do, but like it's just right there. You just reach over, you pour it, and it's just you always got to be cautious, man. Especially now going into the holidays, like call somebody, ask for help. Like you're not you're not an amateur if you're thinking about drinking. You drank and used for how many years, right? Like, of course, it's still going to be on your mind once in a while. Like if you have a problem
Totally.
or whatever, like don't beat yourself up. Just don't drink and don't use.
And don't use. And it's so funny because my first sponsor just called me my second sponsor actually, who I had for 10 years. Remember Margie?
Oh
She just
yeah,
called. Yeah, yeah. She just called me the other day. It was just her birthday. Happy birthday, Margie, if you're gonna watch this. And I remember talking about the holidays and going, all right, what's my plan?
yeah,
How am I gonna get out? Somebody call me and tell me the dog's like throwing up or something.
yes. No, it's true. Like, how do I like you? And look, you need a plan. As if you're new or if you're second guessing yourself, like nobody's too big for a plan. You know what I mean? Like, don't like humble yourself. That's what this is all about. I'm talking to myself now. You got to remember that stuff because we get sober so we can go anywhere. Like, if I have singleness of purpose, there's no place I can't go. The biggest party in the world, maybe a seedy environment where I got to get a friend out of there, whatever. But if I'm not feeling spiritually fit, just call somebody, say a prayer. Like, I haven't graduated. That's for sure.
It's so funny because you keep saying what I'm thinking. It's like
Yeah,
literally because we never think. I mean, I have 18 years. You have 13. We still continually go to meetings all the time, and we still call our sponsors all the time. I
yeah,
mean, I can't make a decision sometimes without calling her and going, "Okay, this is a big one. What do you think?" And
yeah.
she gives me her time, which I'm so grateful
I need to
for.
call my sponsor more, but that's just putting that out there in the spirit of honesty. I need to flex that muscle more.
Yeah, it gives us. It's just nice to have somebody that says, but for one, that gives you their time. Like,
Yeah,
think about that. And
yeah.
you, as a sponsor, you do the same thing. Do you have a sponsee right now?
I did, but he went out recently, so I don't have any. But I'm looking. And really, the more I go to meetings, the more opportunities will come up. Like if you're going to meetings and you're getting your hand up and you're sharing, this is what Clint Brooks has always told me. Like you will get sponsees. Like if you don't have any sponsees, you're not doing that. So it looks like I got to do that more often.
Well, I know JF for a while, I was giving him shit because I'm like, do you have a sponsee? And
Yeah.
he's like, no, God's going to drop it into my lap when I know he's supposed to. Well, now he is too. So that's
Okay. Well, yeah. That's what happened. Yeah.
good. It's so great to see you. I am so excited about all your successes that are going on. It's amazing. And I can't wait to meet your girlfriend.
Yeah.
And thanks for saying yes, as you always do.
Thanks for having me, Biz. Thanks for asking.
I love it. I love it. Well, you left again for a second. Well, I'm going to let you go because somebody obviously wants to get in touch with you. Well,
All right.
thanks for being here, everybody. If you want to reach Pete, I'm going to have his info for his show. I'm going to have his email address. I'm going to not, yeah, I'm going to, I don't
Yeah.
know
Well,
if you want.
whatever.
Okay.
Instagram,
Okay. Email address, all of it. You're going to find it in the description. And thanks for listening. And if you did enjoy my show, subscribe. And if you enjoy Pete on Pete's side, subscribe. And until next time, everybody, keep getting busy, living